Have you ever been in the middle of a completely normal conversation, and suddenly a strange feeling washes over you? The person sitting across from you is smiling. Their words sound perfectly pleasant, and yet every instinct in your brain is screaming that something just does not add up. They sound confident, but their sudden shift in posture tells a different story. They tell you they are perfectly fine, yet one simple, innocent question completely changes their mood, draining the warmth right out of the room. Most people ignore these moments. They brush them off, assuming they are just overthinking things. But what if the ability to truly understand people has absolutely nothing to do with memorizing rigid body language rules and everything to do with noticing the hidden patterns that the rest of the world completely overlooks? Welcome to a deep dive into the fascinating world of behavioral observation. Today, we are exploring the profound and sometimes shocking psychological tricks that polymaths use to read anyone. Polymaths, individuals with a deep and wide-ranging curiosity across multiple disciplines, do not look at human behavior the way most people do. They do not believe in magic tricks or mind reading. Instead, they view human beings as complex, fascinating systems. They become unusually curious about how people work, why they behave the way they do, and what hidden assumptions quietly shape their everyday decisions. Instead of accepting the very first surface-level explanation a person offers, a polymath leans in and looks closer. Why did that person react so strongly to such a trivial comment? Why did they completely avoid answering that one particular question? Why did their entire attitude shift the exact second another person walked into the room? The most fascinating part of all of this is that the clues to a person's true nature are rarely hidden in dramatic confessions. They are hidden in the incredibly ordinary moments of everyday life. A micro-pause before answering a question, a sudden unexplained change in vocal tone, the repetition of an excuse, the compulsive need to correct everyone in the room, the exact way someone treats a person who can offer them absolutely nothing in return. These fleeting moments can reveal far more about a person's character than an hour of carefully prepared, highly polished conversation. But before we go any further, there is a crucial warning we must discuss. Becoming highly observant does not mean becoming deeply suspicious of everyone you meet. This is where amateurs fail. They read one book on psychology and suddenly believe everyone is lying to them. Sometimes a nervous reaction is just simply nervousness. Perhaps they had too much coffee. Perhaps they slept poorly. Sometimes a contradiction in a story is just a genuine mistake of memory. True intelligence, the kind of intelligence a polymath cultivates, knows the vital difference between noticing an intriguing clue and instantly inventing an entire fictional narrative around it. Reading people accurately requires patience, empathy, and a highly objective mind. So how do they actually do it? Let us dive into the deeper psychological frameworks and techniques you can start using today to understand the people around you more accurately. Number 1, they listen for contradictions, not just words. One of the most revealing things about any human being is not what they say out loud, but what keeps happening after they say it. A polymath pays intense attention to the distance between someone's stated words and their actual behavior. They do this not because they assume everyone is a liar, but because human beings are incredibly, painfully inconsistent, usually without even realizing it. We all describe ourselves according to the idealized person we believe we are, or the person we desperately want to be. However, our repeated unconscious behavior reveals the person we actually are in reality. Imagine you were talking to someone and they tell you, "I really respect brutal honesty. Just tell it to me straight. I do not get offended." That sounds incredibly reasonable, mature, and self-aware. But watch what happens later. A few days pass and a friend tells them something slightly uncomfortable but entirely truthful. Suddenly, the person who claimed to love honesty becomes furious, defensive, and deeply resentful. They may tell the world they want honesty, but their behavioral pattern reveals that what they actually want is agreement, delivered politely and wrapped in the compliment. Or consider another very common example. Think of that person you know who constantly repeats the phrase, "I genuinely do not care what anyone thinks about me. I live my own life." Yet, if you observe them closely, they repeatedly check how others react to their clothes, their opinions, their achievements, or their decisions. They might delete a social media post if it does not get enough likes within the first hour. They might constantly fish for validation in subtle ways. The contradiction between their bold statement and their anxious behavior is infinitely more interesting than the statement itself. This is where careful, patient observation becomes a superpower. When a polymath spots this kind of contradiction, they do not immediately point their finger and conclude that the person is totally fake or manipulative. Instead, they file the information away and watch for repetition. One single contradiction could easily be the result of a highly stressful day, temporary confusion, simple forgetfulness, or an honest mistake. But when the exact same pattern appears again and again and again across different situations, it ceases to be an anomaly. It becomes highly meaningful data. Think about someone who loudly and frequently describes themselves as an incredibly generous person. They make sure everyone knows how much they give to others. But if you watch closely, you might notice that they become noticeably resentful or passive-aggressive whenever they give a gift or do a favor without immediately receiving something equal in return. Their spoken words describe pure, selfless generosity. Their actual behavior reveals that they may be keeping a rigid, invisible scoreboard in their mind, tracking every single transaction. Realizing this does not automatically make them a terrible, evil person. It simply makes them human. It reveals their insecurities. And this is the critical part that so many people miss when trying to read others. Reading people accurately requires immense patience. You are not actively hunting for evidence that confirms your darkest suspicions. You are calmly gathering evidence that tells you whether your initial impression was actually correct or not. Because the truth is, words can be easily rehearsed. Explanations can be perfectly polished. Even entire personalities can be performed for a short period of time, but long-term patterns of behavior are nearly impossible to maintain accidentally. You cannot fake a pattern forever. The mask always slips. So the next time you are listening to someone tell you who they are, do not only ask yourself, "What are they telling me?" Ask yourself something far more revealing. Does their ongoing behavior continually agree with their story? Number 2, they use incredibly simple questions to expose highly complex motives. Sometimes you do not need a 3-hour, deeply emotional conversation to understand what is truly driving someone. You do not need to be a licensed therapist to get to the core of a person's mindset. You just need to ask the right question at the right time, and then do the hardest thing of all. Stop talking. Let them fill the silence. A polymath understands a fundamental rule of human psychology. People will almost always explain their behavior to you at the absolute surface level. They will happily tell you exactly what happened, who was there, and what was said. But they will rarely tell you why it actually mattered so much to them, because often they do not even know the answer themselves. Imagine a scenario at your workplace. A colleague comes to you absolutely furious and venting their frustration. They're extremely angry because another coworker received praise from the boss for a project they worked on together. They might say, "That person is so arrogant. They always try to steal the spotlight and get credit for everything." On the surface, that sounds like a standard, everyday complaint about workplace recognition and fairness. Most people would just nod, agree, and complain along with them. But instead of arguing, instead of agreeing, and instead of offering useless advice, you could simply look at them calmly and ask, "Why does that matter so much to you? By asking this, the entire dynamic of the conversation instantly changes. You are no longer talking about the annoying coworker. You're talking about the person standing in front of you. And the answer they give might surprise you both. Maybe, as they try to explain it, they realize they feel completely invisible at this company. Maybe they have spent their entire lives since childhood feeling overlooked by authority figures. Maybe they deeply believe that external recognition is the only valid proof that they are a valuable human being. Suddenly, a petty argument about one annoying colleague is directly connected to a much deeper, much more profound psychological wound. This exact same principle applies in our everyday personal relationships. Imagine a friend or a partner who gets visibly upset and says, "I absolutely hate it when people take too long to reply to my text messages. It is so disrespectful." Again, you could simply agree that slow texters are annoying. Or you could ask one simple question: what does it actually make you think when someone does that? The answer to that question might reveal that the real underlying issue has absolutely nothing to do with the delayed text message itself. Perhaps they interpret the temporary silence as a permanent rejection. Perhaps they have an intense fear of abandonment, and they feel utterly unimportant and unloved when someone does not respond to them immediately. That is the incredible power of a carefully placed, simple question. It does not aggressively force someone to confess their deepest, darkest secrets. It simply gives them a safe, open space to explore and explain their own thinking out loud. And paid close attention to this next detail because it is crucial. Sometimes the most revealing part of the entire exchange is not the answer they eventually give you. It is the long, awkward hesitation right before the answer. In that brief moment of silence, you can physically watch a person realize that they have never actually asked themselves that question before. You are watching them meet a new part of themselves in real time. But there is a very strict, unbreakable rule here. You must never use these questions as weapons. If you ask a probing question simply to back someone into a corner, to win an argument, or to forcibly expose their emotional weakness, the conversation is no longer about understanding. It has become manipulation. The ultimate goal of a polymath is always genuine understanding, never psychological control. A genuinely observant person is simply curious about the heavy emotional anchor hidden underneath the surface-level reaction. So the next time someone in your life has an unusually strong, highly emotional response to a seemingly ordinary situation, force yourself to pause before judging them. Before you call them crazy, before you tell them they're overreacting, just calmly ask, "Why does this matter so much to you?" A single, simple, non-judgmental question can easily open a door to understanding that 100 clever, well-reasoned arguments never could. Number 3, they observe the mechanics of context shifting. If you truly want to read a person, do not just watch how they act when things are calm. Watch how their personality bends, shifts, or entirely transforms the moment the context of the room changes. We all adjust our behavior slightly depending on who we are talking to. That is just basic social survival. We do not speak to our grandmother the exact same way we speak to our best friend. But a polymath looks for extreme, jarring shifts in personality. Watch what happens when a person of higher status enters the room. Does the person you are talking to suddenly completely change their vocal tone? Do they suddenly adopt opinions they did not hold 5 minutes ago? Do they push you aside, metaphorically or literally, to gain the favor of the new arrival? Conversely, watch how they behave when interacting with someone they perceive to be of lower status. The age-old advice of watching how someone treats a waiter or a retail worker remains one of the most accurate psychological tests in existence. If someone is charming and attentive to a CEO, but dismissive, rude, and impatient with a barista, you do not need to guess what their true character is. Their character is highly conditional, heavily dependent on what they believe they can extract from the other person. A polymath notices these shifts because they indicate a high level of performative masking. When someone's core identity is solid, their baseline personality remains relatively consistent regardless of who is in the room. They might become slightly more formal or slightly more relaxed, but their core values of respect and attentiveness do not drastically flip. When you see someone completely changing their persona based on the power dynamics of the room, you are looking at someone who operates on calculated leverage rather than genuine connection. Number 4, they listen to the deafening sound of silence. We place so much emphasis on the words people choose to say, but the empty spaces between those words are often overflowing with the exact truth we are looking for. When you want to read someone accurately, you must train your brain to notice the things they actively avoid saying. If you ask someone a direct question about their past and they answer by talking extensively about a completely different, unrelated topic, that pivot is a massive neon sign pointing toward a hidden truth. If you bring up a specific name in a group setting and the loudest, most talkative person in the room suddenly becomes incredibly quiet and deeply interested in their phone, that silence is screaming at you. People redirect conversations away from their pain, their guilt, and their deepest insecurities. When a polymath observes a conversation, they are tracking the natural flow of information, but they are also mapping out the dead zones, the topics that are strictly off-limits, the questions that are expertly deflected, the moments where eye contact is suddenly broken. It takes a great deal of restraint to let silence do its work. Most people are deeply uncomfortable with silence, so they rush to fill it with nervous chatter. But if you can learn to ask a question and simply sit quietly in the silence that follows, the other person will almost always offer up more truth than they ever intended to reveal, simply to alleviate the pressure of the quiet room. Ultimately, reading people is not a mystical power. It is not about memorizing a dictionary of body language hacks or acting like a human lie detector. It is the quiet, humble, and endlessly fascinating practice of paying attention. It is the willingness to look past the performance, to observe the patterns, to ask the simple questions, and to respect the heavy silence. When you start observing the world through this lens, human behavior stops being confusing and unpredictable and starts making an incredible amount of sense. If you found these psychological insights valuable, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video so we can continue bringing you deep dives into the human mind. Tell us in the comments which of these observational techniques you are going to try out first, and be sure to check out the next video on your screen for more ways to understand the psychology of the people around you. Thank you for watching, and keep observing.